So Texas is at Kansas in college basketball tonight. Massive game. So, of course, Chip Brown with us to talk about Texas's move to the Southeastern Conference. Welcome in, Chip. How are you?
What's going on, fellas?
Not a whole lot. Chip, of course, on Twitter and ChipBrown247, horns247.com. So the reports came out last week from some of the national guys that, hey, it's everything has hit the skids. We've got the brakes on this deal. It is not likely until 2025. You don't think that is quite 100% yet, that this thing is dead for 2024?
It's not dead yet. There's clearly posturing going on. Look, the TV networks are concerned. Fox especially is concerned about the money it would lose if Texas and Oklahoma left a year early. Fox, it's about 7 games of inventory that they need to be made whole. And the question is, how do you do that? And there have been, different scenarios put forth. Texas and OU, one scenario, one proposal was for them to play one of the remaining Big 12 schools, or 2 different schools, 4 games each, basically. It could be a home and home with 2 teams. It could be 4 games against 1 team. On paper, it looked like kind of a cool way to keep Oklahoma and Oklahoma State going, but it's not that simple. Texas and Oklahoma both are like, why would we play 4 years of games to make up for leaving 1 season early? But it's, it looked like things were, headed toward resolution, but it kind of reared its head again at the Big 12 meetings that Fox is not, entirely happy with the proposals that are out there. And, it's so complicated that it's almost hard to talk about. I mean, Texas has games against Michigan and Ohio State from 24 to 27. Those are Fox games. And Texas was saying, well, if you want us to play a Big 12 opponent, do you want us to scrap these games we have scheduled against Michigan and Ohio State? And Fox was like, well, no, don't do that. So it's complicated. And obviously we're up against the scheduling deadline, and the SEC's waiting to, get all this factored in, because they're trying to figure out what looks like will be a 9-game conference schedule. Divisionless. Each school plays 3 opponents annually and then rotates the other 6. But that takes, a good part of a year to get done before that 2024 football season. So it's a high-speed game of chicken right now.
Chip, Brent Venables had a shaky year 1. I would call Sark's year number 2 in Austin pretty shaky. Where are Oklahoma and Texas on wanting to get there to the SEC a year early? Or were these guys rather slow play it, because obviously the Big 12 is not the SEC?
Yeah, I mean, I think Texas is on a little better footing right now than Oklahoma, simply because of the year that you just described. I mean, Oklahoma took a big step back and wasn't good defensively, and that's a concern when Brent Venables is the defensive-minded head coach. And if you talk to his former players, they talk about all the complicated stuff that players aren't used to having to learn, and they'll be better in year 2. Nonetheless, I think Texas, they should have beaten Oklahoma State. If they would have been in the Big 12 title game. Sark stopped running the football, and now Bijan Robinson's gone. But you've got 10 of 11 starters back on offense. You've got experienced talent at every level of the defense, and Texas should be in the Big 12 title game, and that would put them on a trajectory to hit the SEC running. And I don't think anyone suspects Oklahoma will be down for too long. But they do have to keep, that bar graph has to keep going up, Lance, because as we know, Texas has been in the desert since '09. So they got to get out of the desert.
Yeah, it seems like such a huge gamble to me for the Big 12 not to let them move on, because if Texas, and they've got a chance, wins the Big 12 this year, that to me is bad long term for the Big 12, just image wise. What do you think of that? Because Texas winning and then exiting seems like the worst case scenario for the Big 12.
Yeah, in the Big 12, I think the remaining schools and Brett Yormark are good with Texas and OU leaving. It really is about the TV networks holding this thing up over the money that they feel like they would lose if Texas and OU are not a part of the conference in 2024. ESPN has the most. To me, I've said they have the most incentive and the means to make this happen. They certainly want Texas and Oklahoma in the SEC when their broadcast rights of the SEC start in 2024. But ESPN and Fox, Fox getting the Big Ten network deal and excluding ESPN from any piece of it, has created, really high stakes tension between those two networks as they try to work out the way that Texas and Oklahoma, if it can be done, getting out a year early to go to the SEC. Now, the sort of X factor in this is the $150 million that ESPN will still owe Texas for the Longhorn network after the 2023-24 school year. And, like I said, ESPN has the incentive and the means. Now, their shareholders, Disney, all of that, they don't want to, see money getting thrown around. And so everyone's trying to be fiscally responsible here. I just think that at the end of the day, they're going to figure it out. And so there's a lot of posturing going on right now.
Well, Brown's got a really good idea, so feel free to share this with him. He says just let the Fox folks broadcast the Red River Shootout the first 2 years they're in the SEC and call that even. I mean, that's a big enough game.
Yeah, it's a big game, Chip, and it's not going to feel like an SEC game. I mean, it's just not. It's going to feel like a Big 12 game for a little while until we get a little more comfortable.
Yeah, and that's something that, I'm sure is on the table, and there's no one wants to blink. No one wants to give up the gold unless they absolutely have to give up the gold. And that's, I guess we haven't hit that point yet where where the time deadline is, makes this whole thing prohibitive. I know what has been reported, but we're not there yet. So I would expect, if we're not there by June, then maybe this is gonna go until 2025. But I just get the feeling there's too many forces. Like I said, Brett Yormark, the Big 12 commissioner, the remaining schools in the Big 12 are good with Texas and OU leaving. They have a new media rights deal that will kick in and give them more money than what they're getting right now with Texas and Oklahoma in the league. So it's hard to argue that they're not going to be, whole as a result of Texas and OU leaving. So, lawyers are trying to figure this thing out, and Texas and Oklahoma are trying to figure out what ESPN and Fox are going to say next.
Chip, it has been so long since we've talked to you. We haven't even brought up the Chris Beard situation. We had Andy Katz on last week. I think it was a week ago today. He believes it's going to be a while for Chris Beard before he gets another opportunity. You're on top of it. Kind of the ins and outs. First of all, the future of Beard, and second, Chris Del Conte. Has Rodney Terry got a legitimate shot at this job, or are you hearing other names that are on a short list?
Yeah, I mean, I'll start with Rodney Terry first. That they've become one of the toughest outs in college basketball in the final 4 minutes of a close game, and that's just been unbelievable. I mean, the win they had Saturday at K-State, down 14 in the Octagon of Doom, and they come out in the second half like they're possessed. And Christian Bishop getting it done. They come back, they win that game. They're now 6-0 in games in those close game situations, and then they play Kansas tonight and on the road. And Rodney Terry said, "I've never seen this where you play on the road on Saturday, turn around and play again on the road on Big Monday. Usually you get one of those at home." But no, Rodney Terry, what's sad for this staff and the players, and I think Tyrese Hunter, the talented transfer Big 12 freshman of the year, has struggled with this. His numbers fell off a cliff when Beard was suspended on December 12th, and he's struggled to kind of get it back. He's shown flashes, had a good second half against K-State, but what this team is doing in terms of pulling together and rallying around each other, because none of them asked for this. Chris Beard in a volatile relationship that I think people had advised him, this may not be the best relationship for you, Chris. And then it blows up the way it did. Chris, we haven't heard anything from Chris Beard. And the statement from his fiance was 11 days after the fact. And that's where Texas officials were like, okay, we're not comfortable with this. If she was out in front of the jailhouse saying, things got a little carried away, whatever, then I think Chris Beard, you have a chance to kind of reshape the narrative here. But that police report was out there for 11 days before we heard anything from his fiance. So I agree. I think Chris Beard's going to have to go back to, a lower level situation, work his way back up, and be an advocate for, anti-domestic violence, and own every piece of whatever was going on at his house on December 12th. But, is Rodney Terry a legitimate candidate? Yeah. I mean, the deeper Texas, but they're going to have to go deep in the tournament. I mean, it's great right now what they're doing, but they hired Chris Beard to win a national championship. And right now you've got a group of veteran players who were coached by Beard, who still have that appreciation for the type of defense he wants. When Rodney Terry has to recruit his own players and develop that culture himself, can he do it? That's the $1 million question for Chris Del Conte, who certainly broke the bank to go get Beard, and I think would do it again if this team gives Del Conte reason to believe that he needs to go get a guy who's already done it.
Well, was Alabama's Nate Oats going to be in that mix before Greg Byrne?
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, Oats, Musselman, those were guys I think Texas was looking at when they hired Beard. So, those guys are the hot, coaching names out there. And I will say that Texas, Chris Del Conte, they're laying low. I mean, I'm sure there's back channel, this and that, but, they're letting Rodney Terry do his thing, and we'll see. I mean, Fisher only had to do it for the actual NCAA tournament. Rodney Terry's having to do it for the entire conference season in what is, what everyone says is the toughest conference in college basketball, and he's in first place right now.
It's wild. Chip Brown 247 is the Twitter handle, horns247.com, part of 24/7 Sports. Chip, thank you very much for the time. Always great talking with you.
All right, fellas, take care.
All right, you too. Chip with us on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline.